It's 6 p.m. on a Tuesday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. In the last of 5 Baduk or Go matches between Lee Se-dol and AlphaGo, will man teach machine a painful lesson in defeat and humility? We'll have to wait and see. President Park Geun-hye once again warns North Korea that if it refuses to change its ways and continues to confront Seoul, Washington, and the international community, it will be headed straight for self-destruction. South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and his Chinese counterpart discuss actions that need to be taken against North Korea, including a precise implementation of sanctions. And it looks like we'll begin with the latest updates on the final game of that 5-game challenge of Baduk or Go between Grandmaster Lee Se-dol and artificial intelligence supercomputer AlphaGo. We will connect to our Lee Ji-won, who is standing by to give us the updates. Do we have some exciting news, or should we be worried that the machines will soon slowly take over jobs that humans used to hold? Ji-won.
Hi Daniel, the news just came in that the final round of the historic match between Lee Se-dol and AlphaGo has finally ended after 5 long hours, and that AlphaGo, playing White Stones, has won the game. Well, this has been the longest game ever, attesting to the level of the game challenge at hand. The game has also been a very tight competition. In the beginning of the match, Lee took control of the game with territories established in the lower right side. But as he was passive in escaping from AlphaGo's upper territory, the machine chased him right away. But as AlphaGo seemed to have made a mistake in the middle of the board in his 222nd move, the game became longer. But as you can see, AlphaGo has taken the last victory, and that's 41 for AlphaGo. Well, that's all I have for now. I'm Lee Ji-won, reporting live from the Four Seasons Hotel.
Thank you for those updates, Ji-won. I'm sure that we can find solace in the fact that man was able to defeat the machine once and learned ways to work around it and give it all it's got, and make sure AlphaGo had to work under pressure and push itself to the limits and continue to make upgrades, while human beings will also evolve alongside as well. Now let's move on to a different story. President Park Geun-hye warned Pyongyang that it will be taking the route to self-destruction, if it continues to threaten peace on the Korean peninsula with its nuclear ambitions, and called on officials in Seoul to rev up their cooperation with all related countries. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun has the details.
President Park Geun-hye has called for South Korea to be at full defense readiness and to reinforce strategic communications with its allies in the face of the constant military and cyber threats from North Korea.
북한이 이렇게 무리한 도발과 국제사회에 대한 강한 대립을 계속하면서 변화의 길로 나서지 않는다면 그것은 스스로 자멸의 길을 걷는 것이 될 것입니다. 앞으로 북한이 변화하지 않고 또다시 도발할 경우 우리 정부와 군은 즉각 응징할 수 있도록 만반의 대비태세를 갖추고 미국은 물론 중국, 러시아, 일본 등 관련 국가들과의 전략적 소통을 강화해 나가기를 바랍니다.
At a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, President Park also mentioned the severe human rights violations happening on the other side of the border, saying that people in the north are suffering while the regime invests only in its nuclear program. She said South Korea will work toward improving life for the North Korean people. On a lighter note, the president touched on the match of Baduk or Go between Lee Se-dol and the computer program AlphaGo. She says South Korea's advanced technologies give it an advantage in the fourth industrial revolution, which give it the potential to create quality service sector jobs in areas ranging from big data to healthcare. But in order for any job to be created, President Park said it's essential for lawmakers to pass a package of economy-related bills, especially the ones on labor reform and the service sector. She said this is the final window of opportunity and that lawmakers should focus on the public before they start on campaigning for the upcoming general election in April. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Let's turn our focus to South Korea's political arena now. With just 10 days to go before candidate registration for a general election next month, the newly minted People's Party is still trying to resolve an internal dispute about whether to join forces with the main opposition party. Meanwhile, as the parties finalize their candidate nomination lists, all three major parties are increasingly foregoing incumbent lawmakers in favor of fresh faces as a symbol of their reform efforts. Kim Young-gil brings us the latest.
The leaders of the minor opposition People's Party continue to clash over a proposal from the main opposition Minju Party to join forces, either through a merger or an electoral alliance for an upcoming general election on April 13th. Party co-leader Chun Jang-bae and Kim Han-gil, the party's former chief campaign manager, are in favor of merging with the Minju Party in order to prevent the ruling Saenuri Party from gaining a majority in parliament. But Ahn Cheol-soo, the founder and co-leader, has already rejected the idea, saying his main goal is to make Korea a three-party system. Both Chun and Kim have refused to participate in party business since last week, until a compromise is reached with Ahn. Seeing an opening, the ruling Saenuri Party has sided with Ahn.
The People's Party should be careful to not go along with the plot to get rid of the party, disguised as a merger proposal that's been put forward by Minju Party interim leader Kim Jong-in. The party could be dissolved before the election. We ask for Ahn Cheol-soo's discretion, or he will soon have no place to stand in politics.
In the meantime, all three parties are rushing to complete their candidate nominations before registration on March 24th and 25th. As part of their strategy to appeal to new voters, each of them is blocking incumbent lawmakers from running. However, critics say there hasn't been as much reshuffling as in the general election in 2012. As of Tuesday, the Saenuri Party has expelled 17 incumbent lawmakers from its nomination list, the Minju Party 26, and the People's Party just 1. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Switching our gears and sights to North Korea now that tighter sanctions on North Korea are in place at the UN and individual countries, Seoul's foreign minister stressed the importance of implementation seen as the best way to deal with North Korea's never-ending provocations during recent telephone talks with its Chinese counterpart. Our Kwon So-hwa reports.
South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se has told his Chinese counterpart that with regard to North Korea, a precise implementation of sanctions is even more necessary than before, as Pyongyang has defied the UN's latest resolution and is continuing with its provocations. Seoul's foreign ministry said Tuesday Yoon and Wang spoke by phone late Monday when they vowed close cooperation in effectively implementing UN Security Council Resolution 2270.
The two countries vowed to closely cooperate in the implementation of the recently adopted UN Security Council resolution and shared the view that North Korea's attitude and strategy must be changed through a commitment to implementing the sanctions.
On the same day, Wang and Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida talked on the phone, with the two seeing eye to eye on the need to follow through with the UN's measures. It's the first known conversation between the two sides since North Korea's fourth nuclear test in early January. In line with these efforts, President Barack Obama called on Monday for the U.S. to make sure the sanctions on Pyongyang are being enforced during a meeting with the heads of U.S. diplomatic missions overseas. Pundits say an executive order on carrying out both the UN sanctions and an additional set of U.S. sanctions could be finalized by the end of this week. A senior official at the U.S. Treasury Department, which is in charge of sanctions implementation, will visit China and Hong Kong this week to discuss that and U.S.-China cooperation on dealing with North Korea. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un says the regime is planning to conduct a nuclear warhead test and several ballistic missile launches soon. The tests, if conducted, would be in defiance of recently adopted UN sanctions. According to the North Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday, Pyongyang has successfully acquired the technology to bring a nuclear-tipped missile back into the atmosphere, and it will test the device sometime in the near future. A spokesman at South Korea's defense ministry said Tuesday that North Korea has not mastered missile re-entry technology for its ICBMs. A military official told Seoul-based Yonhap News that the North's claims are aimed at flexing its military muscle and are not grounded in reality. However, some experts predict North Korea could conduct a high-profile provocation such as a fifth nuclear test or a long-range missile launch at the coming weeks or months. Today marks the 4th anniversary of Korea's free trade deal with the United States. Thanks in part to the FTA, Seoul's exports to Washington have steadily risen and its share of the world's largest market has hit a 15-year high. Kim Min-ji has this report.
It's been 4 years since the Korea-U.S. free trade deal came into effect. Although Korea's overall exports have been on a downward spiral for 14 straight months in the face of uncertainties at home and abroad, the country's shipments to the U.S. have fared relatively well thanks to the FTA. Last year, Korea's total exports fell 8% on year, while outbound shipments to the U.S. edged down just 0.6%. Korea's share of the U.S. market also reached 3.2% last year, the highest in 15 years. The figure might seem small, but compared to Japan, which does not have a bilateral trade deal with the U.S., Korea has been on a steady upward trend.
The utilization rate of the FTA hit 71% last year, with Korea's shipments of automobile parts and tires posting notable growth. Although the market share seems like a small figure given the sheer size of the U.S. market, it's significant.
As for Korea's imports from the U.S., shipments fell slightly last year. While there was an uptick in automobiles and LPG, the overall drop was mainly driven by a slump in imports of grain, stock feed, and medical products. And despite Korean farmers' concerns that imports of agricultural produce, livestock, and fish from the U.S. would rise, inbound shipments of those goods fell over 10% last year from the year before. Down the line, the prospects for Korean automakers are looking good, as a 2.5% export tariff was eliminated at the start of this year. Other sectors to benefit include the auto parts industry, industrial boilers, and chemical supplies. But some experts say the benefits of the FTA may be short-lived.
I think it's one-dimensional for us to say the Korea-US FTA is bringing us benefit. That's true. But at the same time, if we think about the future may be heavily affected by how other countries behave and excel in the US market, because they are competing with the Korean exporters in the US market.
Experts say it's important for Korea to position itself well in the markets it already has a presence in before its competitors gain a stronger foothold. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The Bank of Japan has decided to stand pat on its record monetary stimulus as it gauges the impact of its minus interest rate policy. With a wave of central banks set to hold meetings this week, Korea's monetary policy remains in question. Hwang Jae looks beyond the numbers.
Bank of Japan Governor Haruhiko Kuroda and fellow board members left the benchmark rate unchanged at minus 0.1% on Tuesday, while keeping the annual pace of asset purchases at 80 trillion yen, or roughly $700 billion. It was a widely expected move after Japan's central bank surprised markets by introducing a negative interest rate policy in January. The BOJ reiterated, however, that there could be more easing if necessary, especially to reach its 2% inflation goal. This, in turn, is putting the pressure on Korea's central bank to take additional easing steps to prop up the economy.
The key rate should be adjusted according to a country's economic conditions. I think Korea has room to cut the rate to 1% from the current 1.5%.
But as recent easing measures by major central banks like the BOJ and the ECB have not resulted in what they intended, with markets overall reacting negatively, some analysts are more concerned about the side effects that aggressive easing can bring about. And it's a big week for central banks, with the BOJ's announcement followed by the U.S. Federal Reserve and the Bank of England. The market consensus when it comes to the Fed is that it's unlikely to raise interest rates this month, but it might offer signs of scaling back from its earlier forecast of 4 or more rate hikes this year to 2 or 3. Hwang Jae, Arirang News.
Myanmar has elected a close aide to Aung San Suu Kyi as the country's next president, formally ending 50 years of military rule. Htin Kyaw, the ruling National League for Democracy party nominee, won with 360 of the 652 votes cast in Parliament on Tuesday. As the next president, he is expected to collaborate with his longtime friend and NLD leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who is constitutionally barred from running for the nation's top post. Military-nominated Min Sui and NLD candidate Htin Kyaw came in second and third. They will act as the first and second vice president, respectively. Myanmar's first civilian leader will take office on April 1st. The weather is getting warmer here in Korea, and it seems spring is finally upon us here. That means it's the start of the flower season. Korea has a whole variety of beautiful flowers that bloom around this time every year, but they seem to be blossoming sooner than expected. Kwon Jang-ho tells us what we can look forward to.
Spring is almost here. As the cold starts to lose its bite, people are venturing outside to enjoy the warmer weather. And although the trees are still looking bare, they are starting to show signs of life.
Here at Yeouido Park in Seoul, the cherry blossoms are not quite ready to come out just yet. But in the next few weeks, they'll be in full bloom and showering this area with petals.
The fragrant flowers are expected to start appearing in the south of the country towards the end of the month, and the trend will work its way up to Seoul by the second week of April. Before then, other flowers marking the start of spring will be popping up down south. There are reports that yellow forsythia flowers are already visible in South Korea's southernmost island, Jeju, and the azaleas should start appearing around the country a few days later. This year's flowers are coming a few days earlier than usual, but because of global warming, that's becoming a fairly more common occurrence.
Because the temperature is rising every year, it's causing blooming season to arrive earlier. Compared to the 1980s, it's coming about 5 to 7 days sooner now.
That means events around the country celebrating the season sometimes have difficulty adjusting. The Jeju Cherry Blossom Festival is scheduled to start on April 1st, but it's now likely to miss the height of the cherry blossom season, forecast to come 4 days earlier. Meanwhile, many other flower festivals are starting this week, with the Myewa Festival in Gwangyang on Friday and the Gure Sansuyu Festival on Saturday. And in Seoul, the Yeouido Spring Flower Festival is set to begin on April 1st. It's one of the biggest events at this time of year, with visitor numbers expected to be in the millions. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
We've come to the end of our newscast. As always, thank you for watching.